mates, and welcome to another episode of the Snowy's Camping Show with Ben and Lauren. Hello, Ben.
How you going?
Good. How are you? You're about to jet set somewhere fancy.
Yeah, well, it's not camping. Off to Gold Coast for my daughter's national gymnastics competition. So
Nice.
far from, I'm not using any of the products that we sell at Snowy's, but we're just going for a relaxing holiday, really. Go and sit in the pool. It's a bit warmer in Gold Coast than it is here.
That's nice though, right?
It is, yeah.
Like it's nice to get away.
I think if you try and get away from the mental state of like, oh, I should be camping or I should be using gear and just go, I'm just going to enjoy where I am sometimes. I don't have to be camping all the time.
Yeah.
Not that I've been camping much at all recently, but anyway. So I'm actually quite frazzled because today's my last day before I've gone.
You're running around like a headless chook, aren't you?
And had our meeting, and then you went, let's record this, and our videographer said, can we do this? And then I went, well, that's my entire day. So and I should just about be going home. I've got things to do before. So
this is good.
So we're on a tight time frame here, so stop waffling. Let's get on with it.
All right then. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to your podcast, and also on YouTube, and join our Facebook group, Snowy's Camping Show. Snowy's Camping Banter is our Facebook group. If you want to get in on the conversation and never miss any more introductions to a podcast episode like this one. So today we're doing probably like every now and then we do a bit of a back to basics sort of episode, I guess, don't we? And it's usually triggered by trends that we're seeing sort of with customers or feedback that we get coming through. And I would say over the last month or two, we're just getting a really high volume of customers who are looking for advice on how to repair their tent, like it's been damaged, either wind damage or, a range of different scenarios. It's actually mostly the sort of torn materials and things like that. But just as a point of interest, Wombat Attacks, which I never would have thought was a thing, is a thing, a huge thing. Like I'm talking 10 customers probably in my recent memory have sent through these abominable photos of the state of their tent after they've had some snacky snacks inside, and a wombat's just been like, I want whatever's in there.
Is it literally a wombat, just going bananas and tearing a tent to pieces? Or is it more of a slow approach where it nibbles its way in and then just gradually chews pieces to
From what I've seen, it appears that the wombat is going for a intentional, focused attack on whatever's in the tent for food.
They're deceiving animals, aren't they? Because they look big, soft, round, fluffy animals, but they're built like
you never see them, right? Like you rarely ever see them.
Yeah.
And yet here we are getting a plethora of customers saying, can you give me any advice for fixing my tent? Because
and they can move pretty fast too, I think. So, yeah, interesting creatures.
I mean, I've seen the most amount of wombats on the Eyre Peninsula driving in the middle of the night, just, legging it across the road and things like that. So they are fast, but I don't. If you've been attacked by a wombat, can you please let us know? Because I actually need to quantify this.
I saw heaps of wombats on we were up at Cradle Mountain in Tassie. There was heaps of wombats on the flats as you walked out of the walk up to, I can't think of the peak that we went to.
Yeah.
But they're very cute looking animals. Remember my kids going, oh, look, it's a cute wombat. And I just thought, I got pictures of them getting too close and this wombat going rogue and its teeth comes out. And
the only wombat I really sort of, have an intimate knowledge of is the one from a country practice.
It's going back.
And that's about the most exposure I've ever had to wombats. And then, of course, obviously you've got that book. What's her name? Mem Fox.
Yeah. I've got one, my daughter, called Itchy Nose, Scratchy Butt. Scratchy Nose, Itchy Butt, one or the other. Anyway,
it's a wombat.
We haven't even got, what are we for?
All right, tent repairs, fabric.
We've done it again. Fabric repairs.
Fabric repairs. So
tapes are the most common, quick, easy.
Yeah, definitely.
Solution.
And I think the repair tapes can work both on the inside, like your tent inner, and also your tent outer. And depending on the type of material your tent's made out of, they can be a long-term solution. But I think where possible, it's good if you do have especially a significant tear or repair job, that you sort of maybe only rely on your tape for a shorter term and look to getting it professionally repaired a bit further down the track. I mean, if we're talking, you know, little, maybe a bit of ashes dropped on your tent, you've got a bit of a hole, or we're talking like small holes or small cuts or tears, then sure, tape forever. But if it's anything more significant, like a wombat attack, photos I've seen, tape is going to be the way through temporarily.
Yep.
And then you can look at doing something further.
If it's in a stress or a point where the fabric's under a bit of stress as well, then tape's only going to give you limited repair job, and you're going to need something more permanent.
And I think that it's also really handy to have repair tape in your kit just as a standard, because it works on a whole range of different things. Like you can use it on your tent floor, you can use it on your inner, your outer, as I mentioned before. But I've just, my mum has a puffer jacket, like a down puffer jacket that's got melted by the campfire, and it's just some tape on that, and Bob's your uncle. I reckon that's been going for years. So it's very versatile.
Yeah, I love the look of an old puffer jacket with little bits of tape all over it, because it's had rips and tears and holes from the campfire, and it's had a life. So examples are
sorry Benji, I know we're flying through this one, but it can come in a range of different colours as well, and you can also get it clear. And when you are applying it, it's best to apply it both on the outside and the inside of the material, so you're sort of sandwiching the part that you need repaired.
Mm-hmm. So examples, is it Gear Aid? I think we've got quite a few. Tenacious tape, Tear Aid, vinyl repair tape, or Tear Aid Type B vinyl repair tape is one you've noted here. Tenacious tape's one that I've always pretty sure that's a Gear Aid brand. I know the name of the tape, but I can't think of the brand. It might have changed at some stage.
Gear Aid does do tenacious tape.
We've got an Australian RV heavy-duty awning repair tape. You can go down the path of just duct tape if you want, which the tape itself is heavy-duty, but that can leave a bit of a sticky residue if you're not, especially if you leave it on too long.
But those vinyl tapes are really good for heavy-duty PVC flooring of your tents or your swags and things like that. They're actually also really great for caravan awnings. You know how it is a canvas, right? But it always seems to have this real stiff sort of plasticiness to it on a canvas awning sometimes, like a caravan awning, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Like the old-fashioned stripy rollout ones and things like that. But that heavy duty awning repair tape or vinyl tape is really good for that. Also, hot tip, if you've got a pool and you have a bunch of pool toys and they barely ever last a season, just patch them up with a bit of vinyl repair tape. They'll last forever.
There you go. Heavy duty. Well, there's a lighter duty one as well in the same range of stuff.
Yeah, the types. Type A, it's just more of a suitable for fabrics as opposed to like a PVC or a vinyl material.
Some of them will be thinner, so they kind of move with the drape of the fabric rather than being too stiff.
Which is your Kenyan K tape. That's probably the most popular one that we sell, but it does come in a range of colours, but they're like primary colours, so you might not be able to get it to match perfectly. But that one's really great for clothing, but also for a range of lightweight tents, like your more sort of modern synthetic materials and things like that. That's a nylon ripstop tape.
Yep.
But I think that if you've got a canvas tent or sort of like a polycotton canvas tent or some heavier denier tent, getting it repaired at a repair place is going to be a piece of pie. It tends to be more those more modern synthetic material tents, potentially like the Coleman Instant Up range and the Austrail range, that can get a little bit tricky to get professionally repaired because the material tends to be a bit too thin. Mm-hmm. So a lot of places won't actually give it a go. So that's when your repair tape comes in super handy.
Yep. Pole repairs. We haven't touched on glues here. I don't think we haven't noted that, but I will mention that now, that if you're using tape in combination with a glue, if you want to step up temporary repair to make it a little more than just temporary, glue and then a bit of tape each side is going to work. Something like Seam Grip or Storm Shore. Mm-hmm. I know Seam Grip, in particular, a store I used to work in, we had a little bit of fabric and we just put a cut down the middle, put a strip of Seam Grip on each side, and you could stretch the slice in the fabric out so you could see through the gap in the middle and it would just close up again.
But it was fully sealed.
But it was fully sealed, yeah. So so that didn't help with the strength. It would still be stretchy, but if you then most tents will come with a patch of fabric that's similar to what the tent's made of. Put that glue on, glue a patch of that fabric over the top and you've almost got yourself a permanent repair there as well. Take it one step further and stitch around the edge of the patch and you've got yourself a really good repair.
And I guess that's also a really good point because like Spotlight, for example, they now do a nylon ripstop material. It's super lightweight. So if you're not able to get it done professionally and potentially repair tape's just not quite up to the job, using Gear Aid and getting something like your nylon ripstop from a local fabric store and creating your own big patch like that, definitely the way to go.
Might not be pretty, but it's camping gear.
Yeah, and
shows
sort
character.
of, you know, I've seen a little bit sort of off topic with the mats, but I've seen a self-inflating mat that was sent through by a customer, a photo of it, and he'd had it for nearly 17 years.
Wow.
And it was looked like it was covered in confetti because he just patched and repatched and he loved it. It was like an old Thermarest.
Yeah, right.
And so I think sometimes people, you know, they get a cam and they use it and then it breaks or it tears or whatever, and they're like, like it's destroyed, but also you're using it. And sometimes that's just the nature of certain pieces of gear that they will get used and they will need repair.
Yep.
So don't be afraid of repairing it and don't be afraid of having patches.
And do it before the rip gets too big. If it is a really big rip, you're going to need help. If it's a little rip, just use some glue and a patch and you probably won't have to do anything more to it. Grab it before it gets too big.
Yeah, good call.
Pole repairs. So many different poles now, right? I guess if you think of the traditional fiberglass poles with the elastic down the middle, you can repair them
like dome
all the
tents.
time. Yep.
Yeah.
Biggest issue you've got is if they break, they can potentially tear the fabric, and then you're back to topic number one where you're repairing the hole in the fabric. But they're a pain in the bum to fix because you've got an elastic cord down the middle that you've got to hold taut and hope it doesn't disappear back up the entire length of the fiberglass poles. If you do repair them, don't cheap out on the replacement poles that you get because they'll just break again.
Yeah.
Different diameters, you can get kits to fix those. But then you've got this stainless steel, this alloy, lots of different pole types, the composite ones as well, which is probably easy to replace if you need to, although they're really hard to break, but they don't have the elastic down the middle.
But they're also versatile, right? Like you could use them to fix swags. You can use them to fix hiking tents. Like at a push, they come in different diameters. You can get a pole repair kit and generally, even with a hacksaw, cut up the segments and create a pole of your making.
Yep.
So they are versatile in that sense. I mean, I've even had customers call up, to get them for things not camping related, like a guy needed to fix some poles on his canopy on his little tinny and just used those, so they're really handy to have.
Yeah.
But I think, like you mentioned before, it's getting a bit trickier these days because so many tents, with their instant up frames, or they have certain structures that are really specific to the brand of the tent. It's not like a generic sort of pole thing that's applied across every brand and model now.
Yeah.
So some brands' spare parts are really difficult to get a hold of. Other brands are really great. So like Coleman, Black Diamond and Zempire are all brands that we work with that have a really extensive parts range for their tents. So it's always good when you're looking at investing in a tent, what after sales service you've got there and what parts are available if you do potentially need them in the future.
I'll mention with steel poles and alloy poles, they can be harder if you've just broken a section. Quite often you need to get that pole or that tent because it's got a specific bend or something in it.
Yeah.
So the alloy ones, although they're lighter, can be a bit harder to find replacement sections for because you need to get exactly the same pole. But those fiberglass ones are really easy to replace.
Ferrule's always good to have in your kit, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever really used one though?
You mean just the bit in between the poles? That's the bit?
Yeah, or that sleeve that you get that you can put over existing poles that are broken and then you sort of gaffer tape it and it splints the pole.
I can't recall if I've used that. I do recall many a times sort of taping or tying a stick and stuff to poles that are broken to try to just keep it functional.
Yeah.
But that's basically a tube that fits over the pole, slightly larger diameter than the pole. And you just put it over the broken bit and it strengthens the broken bit. I don't reckon I've ever used one. But there's also the ferrules are also the bits that join the poles together. So if you are replacing an entire pole, and you buy a repair kit, you have to think about the ends of the poles and how they attach to the tent as well. Because some are just loops the pins go up into. Some are actually eyelets in which the pole fits into. So if you're replacing an entire pole section, just think about how that pole terminates and joins to your tent.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
What have we touched on here? I mentioned before the type of fiberglass poles that you get. I just want to mention that they're quite often the black ones are very basic. They're just fiberglass and they can splinter. Australia have always had one called a Duraplus.
Pretty sure that's composite, isn't it?
It's sort of composite. Coleman, yellow poles in Coleman's, like their old I can't think of the name of the tent. Sorry, you're putting the spot there.
Montana?
No, Montana, the other one, the Chalet.
Chalet CB?
They had yellow and grey poles.
Yep.
So they're fiberglass, but they've got a wrap around the outside as well for a bit of extra strength. So I guess it's composite in the sense that it's using two different materials.
Yeah,
so if that
true.
splinters, it's just got that extra strength of the wrap around the outside. So that's where you might pay a little bit more for that fiberglass repair kit. You're probably going to get longer life out of paying that little bit more for those poles, bearing in mind that if you get a cheap pole and it breaks, it's probably not just going to be the pole that you're repairing, but it's going to be, once again, the hole in the tent that it creates when it does break, if it breaks. So
that's true.
One other thing I'll put here, best way to go about pole repairs is to try and avoid it in the first place and just set your tent up in full. Use all your guy ropes. Be conscious of how you've set up, what the weather you're in. If it's really bad weather, put your awnings down. Make sure your guy ropes are taut. Use the right pegs. Et cetera,
use tray springs.
Use tray springs.
Make sure your tensioning's good.
Yep. The tent should have a little bit of movement, but if it's really stressing, then you've got to have a think about how you've set it up to try and evenly distribute that stress. And when you put your swag poles in, peg them up evenly each side. Don't just peg one side to the other. The whole sort of shape of the pole goes to one side, and then one point bends more than the other, and that's where you get the break. So be conscious of all those things. Avoid having the break in the first place, and you won't have a problem.
Because I think, and that's a really great point. I would say in the whole entire time I've worked here, an incidence of a tent or a swag or some sort of pole failing just because never happened. Like it's never happened. I would say 99% of the time it's environmental. It's like wind or storm damage, and the tent's not quite being supported properly.
Yep.
And I can say 1% was vehicle driving into a tent by mistake.
Or a wombat.
Yeah, wombat. But wombats are fabric, not poles, you know. So, so that's a really good point to make. Generally, you won't have to replace your poles or deal with poles if you're setting your tent up well and supporting it properly.
And often an inadequate or a cheaper tent used in environment that it's not designed for.
Yeah.
Really thin fiberglass poles with flimsy guy ropes, poorly placed guy ropes equals broken tent.
Yeah.
We haven't touched on air poles here too, but I've not spoken to anyone who's had to replace an air pole yet.
I have spoken to 2 customers that have had to replace air poles, and this was a few years ago. And one of them had opened up the zip of the tent whilst it was inflated to have a look at what was going on. And then because of all the pressure, that little spot there, it just burst.
Oh, the zip on the actual
the
tube.
zip on the sleeve that holds the tube in place. They'd zipped it open. So don't do that. Don't
unzip the pole while it's inflated.
Yeah. And the second one was a customer who way overinflated their tent on the PSI for the weather.
Right.
But that's the only instance. And I think that to sort of account for that, most air pole tent brands like Zempire, Darchi, Oztent do some air pole tents as well. The PSI that they specify in the manual is designed to be a fairly general guide for year round, but they also make a note of, hey, drop it down a few PSI if it's going to be hot, because obviously hot air expands, right?
Zempire's newer air poles have got some crazy burst strength as well.
Yeah, they're
thinner.
insane.
So the technology's from where it was probably 5 to 6 years ago, where air poles didn't
relatively
get a good rap.
New, yeah.
They've come a long way now.
And I will say on that note, it's just a simple matter of replacing the tube section. If that does happen to
potentially easier than trying to replace a fiberglass pole section, because you can just unzip it, replace that tube. And then if you want to take a spare with you, they're pretty compact ladders to take with you.
I think we've even probably got one behind us.
We've got a few behind us that we were always going to do a burst test strength on and never got around to it, mainly because I was concerned about the noise it might make, and I actually want to drive over one. Well, that's what I was going to do.
Yeah.
But they make a big bang when they
do pop.
When they pop. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Zippers.
Zippers. So they can often be replaced. Like they're one of those things that can generally be replaced. However, you do get a bit caught out if you need matching zippers. Like if you've got a tent that has walls or accessories and you need to line up the zippers, you might not be able to get a replacement zip that's going to match the OEM zip on your accessories. However, having said that, I would say it's very rare to sort of come across a zip that can't be revived or can't be revamped, because even if they're quite corroded, you can usually sort of soak them in stuff overnight or for a while and sort of get that corrosion out, clear them out, give them a scrub, give them a clean silicone spray. There's so much that you can do for zip maintenance. And I think even if you're as long as the physical teeth of your zip aren't broken off, you should be able to recover the zip with a bit of TLC and some elbow grease.
You might find it's just the zipper slider.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you're sliding the zip and it's not doing up properly, there's probably a few things going on there. Firstly, the zipper itself is kind of like a bit of a C shape.
Mm.
And over time, if you pull on the zipper pull, that can separate a little bit and it doesn't effectively bind the teeth together as you slide it. So quite often all you need to do there is just pinch the zipper closed a little bit with some pliers, not too much because you still need to be able to slide it. Give that a try. If that doesn't work, the zippers, if it's a YKK zipper, a good quality zip, it's probably got a number on it somewhere and you can probably, you can go somewhere and find a replacement zipper. I know I've replaced my zipper on my wetsuit once because it corroded so much that the pull just came right off.
Yeah, right.
And I managed to find the same number zipper. It was like one of the plastic zippers, and I replaced it. Bit of mucking around, bit of unstitching to try and get it on the end. But now, and it's been working again for another, I don't know how many years.
Yeah, that's boss. Love that.
Yeah, a zipper can be repaired for the most part. The main thing though, you've hit the nail on the head. If the teeth on the actual zipper itself are broken, that requires a replacement. If the teeth aren't broken, it's probably the zipper pull, and that's a much easier fix.
Much easier fix. And speaking of a much easier fix, there is an awesome new gadget that's sort of been on the rounds over the last couple of months. I think it's called a fix and zip or a fix. I had it written here.
It's right here on the back.
Oh, yeah. What is it? It's a fix and zip, as in fix the letter N and then zip.com.au. And essentially it's a replacement zip slider. And it's pretty universal. I think you can get little sizes, but they just literally attach onto your existing zipper line, and you can replace just about anything.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. I don't know if it's that one, but I've seen that or a variant of it recently.
I think we should probably get them in, to be honest.
We'll let Dave know about it and see if he can get them in. There is a bunch for other repairs too, like Cedar Summit, I know do a bunch of repair clips, side release buckles and that sort of thing that are like field repairable things. So if you break a buckle, you can use
just
these
unscrew the thing.
Screws in and out. So lots of repair options around. If you've got any questions or if you've got any brilliant ideas, let us know.
Yeah.
Because I quite like satisfaction of fixing an item of gear going, it's good for another however long and it hasn't gone to landfill.
Admittedly, I also like to spend money. So I don't mind having to buy new things, but I also like to fix things.
Well, I think that I justify that as like, well, I might try and fix it, and then if I really wreck it, I'll just buy a new one.
Yeah, or like I'll fix it and it's usable, but I might just get another one as a backup. Just in case. Anyway.
Cool. That was a short, sharp and shiny. Love to hear your repair hacks though for gear. We should do some little videos actually, like that zipper thing, just to give an idea. It's a bit hard to describe it, but how to fix the zipper and how it kind of works and how you can quite easily revive it.
I'm also really keen to hear about anybody's like worst repair stories, like as in what's the most damage that you've ever received on like a tent, for example, or a piece of gear that you've had to either repair or decided was just too much.
And we should start a Wombat massacre tally. What are we up to? 3 so far?
Yeah. Have you ever had a wombat attack you or your tent?
Number of wombat attacks in 2024.
Love that.
Yearly tally. Sounds good.
Well, that's a nice short, sharp and shiny episode for you today on common tent repairs. Catch you next time. I was like, don't forget to join the conversation, but we've pretty much already said that. So, we'll catch you next fortnight.
Thanks for joining in. We'll see you in the group.